When I first stepped onto the campus of Ridgewood University, I was a bundle of nerves and excitement. It was the beginning of a new chapter, the kind I had dreamed of since middle school: freedom, independence, late night study sessions, new friendships, and maybe even a little self-discovery. As a first-generation college student from a small town in Ohio, getting accepted into Ridgewood, one of the top private liberal arts colleges in the state, felt like winning the lottery. I had worked so hard for this. My parents cried when I got my acceptance letter, and my younger brother, Miles, begged to help me pack my things like I was going on some legendary adventure. And in a way, I was. When I arrived at my dorm and found out my roommate was already there, unpacked, and smiling with a perfectly decorated side of the room, I felt an immediate pang of intimidation. Her name was Riley Saunders. She was from Connecticut, wore designer sneakers, and had the kind of effortless confidence that made her seem like she belonged in a Netflix teen drama. But she didn't make me feel small. Not at all. She greeted me with a warm hug like we had known each other for years and said, "Oh my God, you must be Layla. I've been stalking your Instagram, girl. We're gonna be besties, I can already tell." And honestly, for a long time, I believed her. Riley and I clicked fast. We were both majoring in communications with a focus on media and digital strategy. We both loved old movies, chai lattes, and secretly watched cheesy reality shows even though we pretended to hate them. She introduced me to her friends from orientation, and soon I was part of this little inner circle of cool, funny, ambitious girls who felt like the sisters I never had. By Thanksgiving break, Riley and I had inside jokes, matching hoodies, and a late-night tradition of blasting music while dancing around our dorm in fuzzy socks. She told me about her ex. I told her about the boy I left behind in Ohio. We shared everything, from mascara to our most painful secrets. I trusted her. So when she told me about the Westbrook Media internship, I jumped on it. "You'd be perfect for it," she said one night as we lay on our beds scrolling through job postings. "They only take 2 students a year, but your writing? Your voice? You're literally made for it." I smiled and bookmarked the listing, thinking maybe we could both apply, maybe even do it together. The idea of being in LA for a summer, working with a cutting-edge digital agency that handled influencer accounts and major branding campaigns, sounded like a dream. We both applied. And that's when everything slowly started to change. At first, I didn't notice. It was little things: Riley taking longer to reply to texts, skipping our weekly coffee run to study with someone else, and giving me backhanded compliments like, "You're so brave to wear that color, I could never pull it off." I laughed it off, chalked it up to stress, or maybe just normal shifts in a friendship when midterms hit. Then one day, out of nowhere, I heard my name being whispered in the hallway. "I just feel bad for her," someone said. "She tries so hard to fit in." That night, Riley wasn't home. I sat in bed replaying the voice in my head. Was that Maya? One of our mutual friends? Was she talking about me? It didn't make sense. Until it did. 2 weeks later, I got an email. "Congratulations, Layla. You've been selected for the Westbrook Media Summer Internship." I screamed. I cried. I called my mom and danced around the room. I had done it. All those nights of perfecting my writing samples, tailoring my resume, and rehearsing mock interviews in the mirror, this was what it was for. But Riley didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just stared at her phone when I told her, nodded slowly, and said, "Wow. That's great for you." And then she turned back to her laptop. I should have seen it then. The mask slipping. The tiny crack in her perfectly supportive facade. But I didn't want to believe it. Not about her. Not about Riley. That weekend, she posted a story of her and Maya laughing in a coffee shop, captioned, "Real ones only." I wasn't invited. I wasn't even mentioned. When I commented a heart emoji, she left it on scene. I started noticing how people in our group barely looked at me in the dining hall. How someone edited me out of a group pic on Instagram. How no one tagged me in the campus event I helped organize. I thought I was overthinking. I hoped I was overthinking. Then one morning, I opened my laptop to finish my project for media ethics and saw something that made my stomach drop. My final paper had been altered. Entire paragraphs were rearranged. Some of my original words had been changed. And at the bottom, there was a suspicious link to an article I had never cited. A few hours later, I got an email from Professor Banner's office. You have been flagged for potential academic misconduct. Please report to the dean's office immediately. I froze. What? No, 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 no. This couldn't be happening. I had saved every draft. I had never plagiarized anything in my life. I was meticulous about sourcing, citations, formatting. I was that student who double-checked the MLA guide like it was scripture. I burst into tears. My hands shook as I scrolled through the version history. Someone had tampered with my file. But how? There was only one other person who had access to my laptop. Only one person I had ever shared my password with. Riley. My roommate. My best friend. The girl who hugged me on move-in day and said we were going to be besties forever. My whole world started spinning. Had she done this? No, that was insane. That was paranoid. Right? Except the more I thought about it, the more things clicked into place. The distance. The coldness. The subtle digs. The whispers. The fake smiles. The sudden freezing out from our friend group. The eerie way she just watched when I got that internship email. She was jealous. She didn't get the internship. And now, I was being accused of cheating. I sat there, staring at my screen, heart pounding, mind racing. My future, everything I had worked for, was hanging by a thread. And I had a terrifying feeling that this was just the beginning. I walked to the dean's office with my chest tight, like I couldn't fully breathe. Every step felt heavier than the last. I passed students laughing on the quad, completely unaware that my entire future was balancing on a knife's edge. The worst part? I hadn't done anything wrong. I was innocent. But proving that felt impossible when your world's crumbling and no one's on your side. The office was sterile and too quiet, the walls lined with framed photos of past graduates and deans who probably never had to deal with a betrayal like this. Dean Halbridge, a tall man with a deep voice and unreadable expression, motioned for me to sit. We received a report from your professor about suspected plagiarism in your media ethics paper, he began. My voice shook. I didn't cheat. I swear I didn't. Someone must have. Something's wrong with my file. I had it saved. I had it finished. He held up a printed copy. This is the version that was submitted to the course Dropbox. It includes content from an unattributed source, a website not cited anywhere in your original bibliography. I never included that source, I said, panic rising in my chest. That wasn't my final draft. Someone changed it. Someone got into my computer. He tilted his head. And who would do that? I paused. The name burned in my throat. Riley. But saying it out loud felt like lighting a match in a forest. I didn't have proof. Just a gut feeling and a storm of suspicions. What if it really wasn't her? What if someone else had done it somehow? Or what if no one believed me and I just sounded like a paranoid liar? Still, I had to try. My roommate had access to my laptop, I said carefully. We used to work on assignments together, and I gave her my password a while ago. I think maybe she did something. Dean Halbridge raised an eyebrow. You're accusing your roommate of tampering with your academic work? I'm not accusing. I'm just saying something's off. I didn't write that version. Please. There has to be a way to check version history or timestamps or... He sighed and closed the file. I'll make a note of your statement and request IT to review metadata and submission history. But you understand, Layla, until then, this case will move forward under probation. That means a hold on your internship approval and any academic awards or leadership roles until we resolve this. My stomach dropped. A hold on my internship? The one I had just gotten? The dream that Riley didn't? I nodded slowly, barely holding back tears. I understand. I walked out of the office in a daze, my mind replaying every conversation, every late night study session, every time I had left my laptop unattended in the room. It all felt sinister now, like I'd been living with a stranger wearing my best friend's face. I didn't go back to the dorm. I couldn't. I texted my friend Noelle, one of the few girls Riley hadn't completely turned against me yet, and asked if I could crash on her futon. She agreed without asking questions. That night, I curled up in a ball under a scratchy blanket, shaking and hollowed out. The next few days were a blur. I kept my head down, avoided eye contact in classes, and drowned in anxiety while waiting for the IT report. I knew what people were saying. Riley's whispers had worked. Girls I used to laugh with now crossed the quad to avoid me. Even professors seemed more curt than usual. And Riley? She acted like nothing had happened. She posted TikToks from our room, laughing with Maya and captioning them. Some people love attention a little too much #drama. She even waved at me once in the dining hall like she pitied me. And that's when I realized. She wasn't just trying to sabotage me. She was trying to erase me. Rewrite the story so that I was the jealous one, the insecure one, the girl who couldn't handle a little competition. I needed proof. I needed something, anything, to expose her. That's when I remembered. Riley loved syncing her phone to her laptop, including mine. There had been times when we'd airdrop each other photos or files. I even helped her upload her resume from my Mac when she was having issues with hers. Maybe, just maybe, there was a digital breadcrumb. I grabbed my laptop and searched through the system logs, something my cousin who worked in tech had once shown me how to access. I didn't fully understand what I was looking at, just a bunch of strange file names and timestamps. But one thing caught my eye. A document labeled Media Ethics Final EDIT2 had been opened on my laptop. At 3:12 a.m. That was the night before the paper was due. I hadn't pulled an all-nighter. In fact, I distinctly remembered falling asleep around midnight after finalizing my draft. I pulled up the system log again. At 3:12 a.m., someone had opened the file. At 3:14 a.m., it was modified. At 3:17 a.m., it was saved. Then, at 3:20 a.m., it was uploaded to the course Dropbox. My hands shook as I stared at the screen. This wasn't just suspicion anymore. Someone had definitely opened and changed my paper after I was already asleep. I called the IT office and explained what I found. They told me to forward the log and they'd escalate the case. I sent it immediately, barely able to breathe from the tension. 2 days later, Dean Halbridge called me back in. "I've reviewed the findings from IT," he said. "They confirmed that your laptop was accessed at 3:12 a.m. by someone using your login credentials and connected via a secondary device, an iPhone that does not match your account. The modified version of your paper was uploaded shortly after." I leaned forward. "So you believe me?" He nodded slowly. "Yes. And we've opened an investigation into your roommate." A massive wave of relief washed over me, but it was fleeting. Because what he said next changed everything. "We've also discovered that several emails from your student account were forwarded to an unknown address over the past 3 weeks. It appears someone may have set up an auto-forward without your knowledge." I blinked. "What? Why would someone?" He raised his eyebrows. "It's possible someone wanted access to your internship confirmation, professor communications, or even your passwords if you ever sent them via email." The room went quiet. Riley hadn't just sabotaged one paper. She had been monitoring me, reading my emails, plotting this for weeks. It wasn't just jealousy. It was obsession. I walked out of that office with my name cleared, but my heart shattered. The internship was reinstated. My professor apologized. Even a few classmates reached out to say they were sorry for believing the rumors. But it didn't fix everything. The damage was already done. And as for Riley, she was placed under academic investigation. Her access to the dorms was suspended. But she didn't go quietly. She posted a long Instagram story claiming she was being bullied and framed by someone jealous of her connections. She even implied that I had hacked her. I stayed quiet. I didn't respond. I focused on moving forward. But the more I tried to heal, the more I realized Riley wasn't finished. Because a week later, someone filed a formal complaint against me again. And this time, it had nothing to do with schoolwork. Just when I thought it was finally over, when I was beginning to feel safe again, ready to move forward with my life and focus on my internship, another storm came crashing down on me. It started with a knock on the door. I had finally moved into a temporary single room the university gave me for the rest of the semester, just to avoid contact with Riley. I was writing in my journal, trying to process everything, when the knock came. I opened the door to see a woman in a pantsuit holding a clipboard. "Layla Carson?" she asked. "Yes. I'm with Student Conduct and Title IX. We need to talk about a formal complaint filed against you yesterday by another student." My stomach dropped again. What? She gestured for me to follow her, and I did, numb, confused, angry, and afraid. The walk to the administrative building felt endless. When we sat down, the woman slid a paper across the table. My eyes scanned the lines, my heart pounding. It was a harassment complaint, filed by Riley Saunders. She had accused me of threatening her safety, stalking her social media, spreading false rumors about her, and creating a hostile living environment before her suspension. She even included screenshots of text messages I had never sent, as supposed evidence. She claims you send these messages late at night, repeatedly, and that you've been encouraging others to harass her online, the investigator said. I stared at the messages in disbelief. They were nasty, filled with things I would never say, accusations, profanity, even threats. One read, "You're done. I swear I'll ruin you if it's the last thing I do." It had my name attached. My number. But it wasn't me. "I didn't send these," I whispered. "They were sent from a spoof number," she explained. "We're currently trying to trace the origin, but for now, this complaint will proceed with an official review." I couldn't believe it. She had already framed me once for cheating, and now she was doubling down, trying to paint me as a violent bully. When she was the one who hacked my laptop. When she was the one who watched me get everything she wanted and tried to burn my life to the ground out of spite. It was evil. It was calculated. And the worst part, it was working. Again. I was placed under a temporary no-contact order, meaning I couldn't speak to or approach Riley, or even go near certain buildings where she might be. The university had to remain neutral until the investigation was completed. But while they investigated, the damage was already bleeding into my life again. Some students started whispering about me again. Others stared when I walked into the dining hall, or worse, didn't look at me at all. I became invisible. Toxic. Untouchable. Like everyone was waiting to see if I'd break. And maybe, for a moment, I almost did. I cried on the floor of my tiny dorm room. I called my mom and tried to explain everything, but she didn't understand the full weight of it. "Why would anyone do something so cruel?" she asked. And I didn't have an answer, because I couldn't wrap my head around it either. I started keeping receipts, literally. I saved every message, every email, every strange DM I received from people I didn't know. I compiled screenshots of Riley's posts, especially the vague ones meant to target me without naming me directly. I documented everything. Every single thing. And then I got lucky. One night, while scrolling Reddit of all places, I came across a post in a student subreddit, someone anonymously asking how to spoof text for a prank. They had clearly not thought through how traceable Reddit could be. I clicked on the profile. It was a throwaway account. Brand new. Only 2 posts. But the username? Rylestapont16. Riles. As in Riley. DuPont. Her mom's last name, which I'd only ever seen on a letter she got once. 16 was her old Instagram handle before she changed it. Could it be her? I took screenshots and sent everything, along with a new detailed timeline of events and the fake messages, to the university investigator. I waited, praying someone would believe me this time without making me feel like a criminal. A week later, I was called back in. "Thank you for your thorough documentation, Layla," the woman said with a faint smile. "Our tech team matched the IP address used for the Reddit post to the same one used to submit Riley's student portal assignments this semester. Additionally, the spoofing app was traced back to a prepaid phone number registered under Riley's name." I exhaled sharply, barely believing what I was hearing. "She fabricated the messages," I said, just to hear it out loud. "She did," the woman confirmed. "The harassment complaint has been dropped, and Riley Saunders will now face a full disciplinary hearing for violation of the university's honor code, tech misuse, and malicious targeting of another student." My hands trembled with relief. My voice cracked when I said, "Thank you." But it wasn't just relief I felt. It was grief. For a friendship that was never real. For a year of college that had turned into a psychological nightmare. For the naive version of me that had once believed Riley was my person. And then, the university offered something unexpected. "Would you be willing to speak to the board during Riley's hearing?" the investigator asked. "Your story matters." I nodded. I wanted to be heard. I wanted the truth to finally be undeniable, not just to administrators, but to every person who ever questioned me, abandoned me, or believed her lies. The hearing was held in a small conference room at the edge of campus. A panel of administrators sat on one side. Riley sat on the other, flanked by her student advisor. She looked smaller than I remembered, quieter. But the moment our eyes met, I saw it, the same coldness, the same arrogance, like she still believed she had a chance to win. I took the stand and told them everything. How we met, how we became friends, how she slowly isolated me and orchestrated the cheating setup, how she planted false messages and nearly destroyed not just my reputation, but my sense of self. I shared my logs, screenshots, timestamps, everything. And then I said something I hadn't planned. I wanted to believe Riley was my best friend. And I think, for a while, she even wanted to believe it too. But somewhere along the way, something broke in her, and she decided that if she couldn't succeed the way she wanted, she'd make sure no one else could either. Not even someone who loved her. The room was silent. When Riley was given a chance to speak, she barely said anything. Just that she was under pressure and felt overwhelmed. She didn't deny what she did. She didn't apologize either. In the end, she was found responsible on all counts. She was expelled from Ridgewood University. And just like that, she was gone. You'd think once justice is served, everything would go back to normal. But it doesn't. Not right away. Not completely. The day I got the official email confirming Riley's expulsion, I sat alone in the student center with a coffee that had gone cold. I stared at the screen for a long time, not knowing what to feel. Relief? Satisfaction? Closure? Instead, I felt empty. Because while Riley was gone, the damage she'd done wasn't. My trust in people was fractured. I started second-guessing everyone, wondering if every compliment was fake, every smile hiding something sharp underneath. The loneliness that had crept in when Riley turned our whole friend group against me didn't vanish with a verdict. The truth was out, but the silence afterward was loud. People who once sat next to me in class now nodded awkwardly in the halls but didn't stop to talk. Some sent vague DMs like, "Hey, hope you're okay," or "Wow, that was crazy. Glad you're good now." But none of them offered anything real. None of them stood by me when things were bad. And I couldn't forget that. I still had my internship though. Westbrook Media confirmed that they were proud of how I handled myself and looked forward to welcoming me that summer. That meant something. It reminded me that no matter how much Riley tried to destroy me, she didn't win. I did. And yet, every win now felt bittersweet. Noel, my friend who'd let me crash on her food and during the worst part of everything, stayed by my side. She wasn't perfect, She had her doubts about me during the plagiarism accusations, but she apologized. Genuinely. Sat me down, looked me in the eyes, and said, "I should have asked you what was going on instead of assuming. I'm sorry I didn't." And for the first time in weeks, I cried, not from fear or pain, but because someone finally cared enough to see me again. We started hanging out more. She helped me clean out my old dorm, and we lit a cheap cinnamon candle in the new one to start fresh. Slowly, I built a little routine again: morning walks, library afternoons, fast times with my mom and Miles. I even started going to a student therapy group for kids who'd been bullied or isolated. I thought I'd feel embarrassed sitting there. But I didn't. I felt understood. One girl in the group shared how her high school best friend spread rumors that ruined her social life just because she started dating a guy the other girl liked. Another guy said his college roommate used his mental health struggles against him and told everyone he was too unstable to be trusted. Hearing their stories made me realize what happened to me wasn't rare. It was just rarely talked about. No one expects betrayal to come from someone who once held your secrets. But it does. And it hurts even more because of how much you love them. I started journaling again, not just about the pain, but about what I was learning from it. About how power dynamics in friendships can shift in dangerous ways when jealousy is involved. About how sometimes people only love you when you're not doing better than them. About how hard it is to speak up when everyone's been fed a version of the story where you are the villain. I wanted to turn it into something. So I started a blog. I didn't post under my real name at first. Just anonymous entries under the title, "When Trust Turns Toxic." The first post was about Riley. Not by name, but by what she did. By how I survived it. To my surprise, people responded. Girls messaged me saying they went through something similar. That they never knew what to call it. That they thought they were the problem. That they never told anyone because they were scared of not being believed. One message stuck with me. It said, "Thank you. You made me feel less crazy." And in that moment, I knew the worst thing Riley tried to do to me, make me feel alone, had failed completely. Because now I was reaching others. Turning my pain into power. A few weeks later, during a student leadership seminar, one of the faculty organizers approached me. She'd read my blog. She asked if I'd be willing to speak at an event they were holding for National Mental Health Awareness Month. Something about toxic friendships and emotional abuse between peers. I hesitated. Not because I didn't want to, but because standing in front of a crowd and exposing my scars still felt terrifying. But then I thought about all the nights I spent crying alone. About how Riley counted on me being too scared to speak. How she weaponized silence. So I said yes. The event was held in a small auditorium. There were maybe 80 people there, students, counselors, a few professors. I wore a plain black blazer and held my speech in trembling hands. But when I spoke, I found strength. I told them everything. The manipulation, the gaslighting, the isolation, the cheating setup, the fake texts, the loneliness, the fear. And then I told them what mattered more. That I survived it. That they could too. After I stepped off stage, students lined up to talk to me. Some hugged me. Some just said thank you and walked away. But in every face, I saw something new. Respect. Not pity. Not whispers. Not suspicion. Real respect. And maybe that's what healing looks like. Not erasing the pain, but turning it into something no one can take from you. Not even someone like Riley. In the months that followed, my blog grew. I renamed it using my real name, Layla Unfiltered. I got invited to speak at other campuses, even appeared on a podcast about college life and mental health. The girl who was once framed, isolated, and almost erased, was now the one leading conversations. And through it all, I never forgot what it felt like to be on the floor of my dorm, crying because I thought I lost everything. Because that version of me? She's why I fight now. She's why I speak. She's why I win. The summer I spent in Los Angeles interning at Westbrook Media changed everything. For the first time since the chaos at Ridgewood, I felt like I was building something for me, not repairing what someone else had broken. I was surrounded by creatives who respected my voice, encouraged my ideas, and saw me not as the girl who'd been dragged through drama, but as a rising talent. It felt like breathing fresh air after being underwater for months. And every time I sat in a meeting or helped develop a pitch or interviewed a client, I remembered, I almost lost all of this. To a lie. To someone I trusted. But I didn't. Because I fought. Because I didn't stay quiet. By the end of the internship, I had an offer to return the following year as a junior brand strategist. I said yes before the sentence was finished. And when I flew home, something inside me had shifted for good. I was no longer scared of my story. I owned it. That fall, when I returned to Ridgewood, I didn't know what to expect. Would people still whisper? Would the ghosts of last semester still follow me into classrooms and dining halls and club meetings? The answer? Not really. Time had moved on, and so had people. Riley had become a cautionary tale. Her name rarely came up anymore, except in vague remember when conversations whispered in corners. But I wasn't hiding in corners anymore. I had emerged from that fire forged in something stronger than before. People remembered what happened, but now they remembered how I survived more than how I suffered. And slowly, the space she once occupied in my life filled with better things. I joined a campus mentorship program for first years who were struggling with social anxiety and toxic relationships. I helped organize mental health workshops and even launched a podcast called Unfiltered Voices, where students shared stories that often went unheard. Stories like mine. Stories like the girl who had been gaslit by her ex and lost all her friends. Or the guy whose roommate secretly recorded him having panic attacks and posted them as jokes. We weren't alone. We never were. We just didn't always know how to find each other. Now, we had a space. The biggest moment of that year came at the Spring Student Honors Assembly. I didn't even know I was being considered until I saw my name in the program under the Ridgewood Resilience Award, a recognition given to students who had overcome adversity and made a lasting impact on the community. When they called my name, my hands shook. But when I stood at that podium, all I could think about was the girl who'd once stared at a blinking cursor on her laptop, terrified that her future had just disappeared. I smiled and said, I used to think strength meant staying quiet. That if I didn't cause a scene, if I didn't speak up, everything would blow over. But silence didn't save me. Speaking did. And the more I spoke, the more I realized my voice wasn't weak, it was powerful. So to anyone who's ever felt small because someone tried to erase you, you are not the problem. And you are not alone. The room clapped. And in that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Not because what happened to me was okay, but because I was okay now. Even better, I was stronger. Later that week, I got an unexpected email from Riley's mom. She didn't write much. Just a short message that said, I just want to say I am sorry for what my daughter did. I don't expect forgiveness, and I don't want to intrude. I just hope you know none of it was your fault. Thank you for standing up for yourself and for others. You changed more lives than you know. I stared at the screen, unsure how to feel. Part of me wanted to reply. Part of me didn't. In the end, I just archived it. Because I didn't need closure from Riley or her family. I had already given it to myself. That summer, before starting my senior year, I returned home to Ohio for a few weeks. My mom threw me a small party in the backyard with fairy lights and iced tea and a banner that said, Welcome home, Layla. Miles, now a freshman in high school, hugged me like I'd been gone for a decade. I read your blog, he whispered. You're like, famous. I laughed. Not really. No, he insisted. You're a hero. I don't know if I believed him. But I believed in what I had built from the ashes. I believed in the way my voice had helped other people find theirs. I believed that while Riley had tried to make me the villain in her version of the story, I had become the hero of my own. And that That mattered more than any lie she ever told. Epilogue. It's been 2 years since that nightmare began. I'm now working full-time at Westbrook Media, living in LA, and running a nonprofit initiative that mentors high school girls navigating toxic friendships and emotional manipulation. We call it Project Clear Mirror, because every girl deserves to see herself clearly, without the fog of someone else's jealousy or cruelty clouding her reflection. Sometimes, I still get messages from old classmates. One girl sent me a DM last month. I used to be friends with Riley. I believed everything she said. I'm sorry. I was wrong. I didn't respond. Not out of pettiness, but because I didn't need to. My story was already louder than their silence. And to anyone reading this who's been through something similar, someone trying to tear you down, twist your truth, make you feel small, just remember, you don't have to shrink for someone else to shine. Speak. Stand. Rise. Because the girl they tried to destroy, she's the one the world needed all along.